I watched a friend of mine the other night obsessively curating his Hinge profile. He spent 20 minutes agonizing over a single photo, debating if it made him look adventurous enough, and tweaking his bio to claim he loves spontaneous travel and hiking. He was treating himself like a product on a shelf, carefully polishing the packaging to optimize for the swipe. To the outside world, he was a confident, extroverted thrill seeker. It was a perfect digital performance. But then the scene shifted entirely. Later that evening, he closed the dating app and started talking to his AI assistant. The change in his demeanor was immediate and striking. He stopped performing. He started venting about his crushing work burnout, admitting to anxieties he'd never put in a bio, and using the specific, dark, self-deprecating humor that he usually hides from strangers. He wasn't trying to impress the machine. He was just being his messy, complicated, authentic self. And that disconnect right there, the massive gap between the curated mask we show dating apps and the revealed reality we share with AI, is exactly where the $10 billion dating industry is about to collapse. While Tinder and Bumble are busy analyzing our shallow lies, a new wave of general AI, armed with persistent memory and high-dimensional analysis, is quietly learning who we actually are when no one is watching. It turns out the future of love isn't coming from a matchmaking startup, it's arriving as an accidental side effect of the assistant in your pocket.
That anecdote is, it's the perfect way to frame this entire disruption.
Right.
For the last, decade? We've all just accepted this sort of fundamental lie, this idea that a static profile and a quick swipe could ever really capture the complexity of a human connection.
We just put up with it.
We tolerated it because, it was the only game in town.
Yeah.
But now the tech, the actual capacity for authentic, deep matching has finally arrived. And it forces this huge reckoning with that old engagement-driven system.
So we're not just talking about a better app.
No, not at all. We are talking about a full-scale systemic collapse. It's driven by AI that can just completely bypass the performance.
And that's where we have to start, right? This isn't just about a few bad design choices. It's about this decades-long societal shift that really set the stage for this kind of emotional exhaustion. We should probably unpack that first, the whole crisis of modern romance that led to swipe fatigue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Historically, love was a much more utilitarian thing. For most of human history, marriage was dictated by these huge external structures.
Kinship, economics.
Right. Kinship obligations, economic necessity, rigid religious or class structures. A partnership wasn't about finding a soulmate. It was much more about securing property or ensuring lineage or just maintaining social stability.
Yeah, I think it was Alain de Botton who made the point that people used to marry for what he called logical sorts of reasons.
Logical reasons, yes.
Like your farm is next to my farm, or we need to merge the family businesses. Your personal emotional happiness was way down the list of priorities, if it was there at all.
And look, that system was often incredibly restrictive, but it provided this tremendous social certainty. You knew your role, you knew your partner was selected through this rigorous external process. The whole foundation was functional, not emotional.
But that started to change.
It started to dissolve, really, starting with the Enlightenment and its focus on individual rights, and then it just accelerated through the Industrial Revolution and all the social shifts that came after, especially, the rise of secularism and female autonomy. All those rigid external constraints they melted away.
So we replaced this practical external need with an internal emotional one.
Precisely. Love got elevated from just a social tool to the primary idealized story for achieving everything.
Happiness, purpose.
All of it. Happiness, purpose, emotional stability, personal fulfillment, self-realization. We basically outsourced all the meaning-making functions that community or religion use to handle directly onto this one single romantic bond.
And that puts an insane amount of pressure on one relationship. Frankly, it's an impossible amount of pressure.
It is.
If love is the only source of meaning, then when that partnership hits any kind of normal human difficulty, the disappointment is just catastrophic. And it leads people right back to the marketplace, right back to the apps.
And the problem gets compounded by this inherent contradiction in modern life. As individuals, we crave the comfort and security of a stable long-term commitment.
Of course.
But at the same time, modern society just prizes radical freedom, endless variety, and self-optimization. So we want the stable anchor of a bond, but we also want the freedom to just exit the moment that bond feels like it's restricting our personal growth.
And you can see that in the data. Marriage went from being an economic necessity to a personal contract.
Exactly.
And if that personal satisfaction starts to fade or you feel like you haven't realized your full potential, the exit isn't just available, it's like socially acceptable now, which is great for individual freedom, but it's terrible for building stable structures. It just creates this permanent state of emotional uncertainty.
And that perpetual search, driven by the breakdown of tradition and this idealization of romance, it flows directly into the digital dating space, which unfortunately took that deep emotional need and just weaponized it through technological manipulation.
Which is where we get to the failure of the gamified model.
Yes.
Because this model wasn't just, accidentally bad. It was intentionally built to be addictive. It was optimized to keep you swiping, not to actually match you with anyone.
That is the essential insight. Apps like Tinder, they weren't engineered by sociologists who were aiming for human flourishing. They were designed by leveraging these deep principles of behavioral psychology.
You're talking about B.F. Skinner.
Specifically, B.F. Skinner's work on operant conditioning. They used what's known as the variable ratio schedule.
I think most people know this feeling, even if they don't know the name. It's the slot machine effect.
It is exactly the slot machine. The match is unpredictable. You don't know if the next swipe will be the winner, but it's frequent enough.
Yeah.
Just frequent enough to keep you pulling the lever.
And that unpredictable intermittent reward gives you that little dopamine rush.
It triggers maximum engagement and a really powerful dopamine hit with every successful swipe. It's literally designed to be an addiction.
So the company's goal is just high engagement. They want to maximize the time you spend swiping and agonizing and, of course, paying for their premium features.
Right.
And the best way to do that is to make sure the system works just enough to keep you hopeful, but not well enough that you actually succeed and delete the app.
If the algorithm gave you a great long-term match right away, the business model would collapse overnight.
Yeah, instantly.
So the system is optimized for the search, not for the finding. And this deliberate optimization for non-success that leads directly to swipe fatigue and just profound dissatisfaction.
And it's interesting, this burnout isn't experienced the same way by everyone. The data shows it stresses men and women in completely different ways.
That's a critical point. The data shows that overall user dissatisfaction is really high. Over a third of users feel overwhelmed by the whole thing. But when you break it down,
It's a different story.
it's a starkly different picture. Something like 54% of women report feeling overwhelmed by just the sheer volume of messages and matches they get. It becomes this constant job of filtering, managing, and often just fending off attention.
Well, on the other side, the majority of men, I think it's 64%, they report feeling insecure or just demoralized because they get no messages or responses.
So the system creates this market where women are exhausted by abundance and the labor of managing it all.
And men are exhausted by scarcity.
By scarcity, the crushing pressure to perform, and just constant digital rejection. It's this. It's a comparison trap and a superficiality trap that just reduces everyone's self-worth, whether you're getting too many matches or too few.
It feeds that whole paradox of choice thing.
Absolutely. Having an endless scroll of options actually leads to you being less satisfied with your final choice. Because you're always wondering, what if the next swipe is just a little bit better?
So that really sets the stage for the collapse. People are they're fed up with a system that's making them miserable, and they've been waiting for some kind of technological savior.
Which I guess gets us to where AI is now in the current dating world and why it really hasn't worked yet.
Right. For years, the industry has been promising these smarter algorithms, claiming their AI would revolutionize matching. But they've been stuck in this very, very shallow pool of data. They're failing to move beyond what you say you want or what they think you want.
And we started with a really blunt approach, didn't we? Almost bureaucratic.
We did. The first generation of online matching was based almost entirely on stated preferences.
The eHarmony model.
Exactly. eHarmony in the early 2000s. Their whole algorithm relied on these huge, complex questionnaires, sometimes up to 450 questions.
Wow.
They asked users what they thought they wanted in a partner interests, long-term goals, political views, the whole thing.
It was an attempt to quantify compatibility by having you assess yourself. Which sounds logical, but it just ignores the messy reality of affection. It was a very clinical, regression-based approach. And it was largely ineffective because, as we know from psychology, what people say they want in a partner often has very little to do with who they're actually attracted to.
Or who you can actually build a life with.
Right. We lie to ourselves about our desires, or we just completely misunderstand where our attraction comes from.
Then the mobile era came along and the swipe, and we shifted to a more behavioral approach. collaborative filtering.
And this is the second generation. Collaborative filtering systems, the kind popularized by Tinder and OkCupid, they basically brought the Amazon recommendation engine to human connection.
Okay, so if I buy a book on French history, Amazon suggests a movie about the French Revolution because other people who bought that book also watched that movie.
Right.
How does that work with people?
It maps based on observed behavior. So if user A, let's call her Alex, consistently swipes right on profiles like Roberto's, and the data shows that hundreds of other users who also like Roberto then showed strong engagement with profiles like Mike's.
Then Mike gets suggested to Alex.
Exactly. It's based entirely on aggregate implicit behavior, who you scroll past, how fast you scroll, who you actually interact with.
But both of these models, the 450 question one and the collaborative filtering one, they're still fundamentally superficial.
They are.
One captures your aspirational lie, what you say you want, and the other captures the curated mask, that immediate judgment based on a photo and a bio. They only see the surface action, but nothing deeper about who the person is emotionally.
Precisely. They are stuck in two dimensions: profile data and immediate reaction. Which brings us to today, where generative AI is being used, but it's largely being plugged into that same shallow framework.
So the results are tools focused on what? Security.
Yep.
We're just making that curated mask even better.
Exactly. Security or Riz.
The security functions, to be fair, are a necessary reaction to the toxic environment the apps themselves created.
Oh, absolutely. The current non-generative AI is mostly just dedicated to managing the toxic side effects of the swipe model. We see this with AI-powered image detectors like the one Bumble rolled out years ago.
To blur unwanted pictures.
Right. It automatically blurs non-consensual or inappropriate images. They're applying AI to user safety, using image recognition to try and mitigate harassment.
And there are also tools that police the conversation itself, which just shows you how bad things have gotten.
Yes. Tinder, for example, introduced tools that use AI to scan your message drafts. They look for inappropriate or harmful language and then prompt you to pause and reconsider before you hit send.
So these are defensive AI tools. They're necessary interventions against the sheer volume of negative interactions that the gamified model enables.
They are. But when we look at generative AI, the LLM capabilities, they are currently being used primarily to enhance the very performance that's causing the burnout in the first place.
They're like technological makeup artists for that curated mask.
That's a great way to put it. Tinder uses AI to scan your camera roll and identify your best pictures based on lighting, context, and what it predicts will get engagement. It's all optimization.
And then you have the third-party tools like Riz Decode.
Yes, and Riz is fascinating because it's a direct symptom of the communication paralysis that these apps create.
So these tools, they integrate with models like ChatGPT to generate witty opening lines and replies for you.
Exactly. Based on screenshots of a match's profile or your conversation so far. The co-founder's stated goal is pretty simple. It's to help the user get past that really difficult make-or-break opening line phase so they can get off the app and onto a date.
So the AI is acting as a stand-in for your charm when you're just too tired or insecure to perform it yourself.
Which creates this severe irony. You're using a machine to generate the spark, the charisma, the authentic seeming connection that's supposed to bridge the gap between two actual humans.
So the conversation starts based on a machine's performance.
And then what happens when you meet? The real person who shows up might not have that machine-level wit. It just reinforces that feeling of inauthenticity and ultimately feeds right back into the burnout cycle. It's a Band-Aid on a structural wound.
And the Band-Aids are feeling, the superficiality is just unsustainable. This is where we have to pivot to the deep AI disruption, which it's not just a technical upgrade, is it? It's a complete structural overhaul. It seems to be based on two things: policy and persistent memory.
This is the core engine of the entire transformation. For these new platforms to gather the truly intimate data they need for deep compatibility, the rocket fuel as we're calling it, they need a policy shift that the old apps are structurally prevented from making.
They need what you call adult freedom.
Yes.
So why can't Tinder or Bumble just pivot? Why can't they just say, our AI is smarter now, tell us your real fears?
They're trapped. They're trapped by their business model and their brand identity. These legacy apps are mass market operations. They rely heavily on advertising revenue, and their brand safety concerns mean they have to maintain this G-rated, sterile chat environment.
They have to keep it clean for the advertisers.
They operate under really strict terms of service to keep conversations non-controversial and non-intimate. Because anything deeper, discussions of fears, past traumas, desires, sexual health, any sensitive personal history. It creates massive liability, and it scares away advertisers.
So they're forced to keep the conversation at the level of, what's your favorite kind of pizza?
Exactly. And real compatibility is not built on sterile conversations. It requires discussing the complex, messy, adult data of life. The key that unlocks this data is strict, verifiable age gating.
So if a new platform comes along and implements robust age verification and operates strictly 18 plus, what does that policy change actually enable?
It creates a compliance shield. And this shield gives them the freedom they need to allow for consensual adult-level conversation. By confirming every single participant is over 18 and has opted into this high-intimacy environment, the platform shields itself from the brand and liability concerns that paralyze the legacy players.
Which means the platform can, and in fact must, encourage the exchange of this really complex, vulnerable data.
And that is the true choke point. The legacy players, by prioritizing mass-market brand safety, are fundamentally blocking their own AI from accessing the most important data for genuine matchmaking.
They're running on shallow water while the new AI is diving deep.
They're caught in a structural bind. They can't transition to collecting the rocket fuel because their existing multi-billion-dollar model demands a G-rated chat. It's a self-imposed technical handicap.
Which is solved by the second pillar, persistent memory. And we need to go deep here because this is where the magic and the risk really happens. We're not talking about a chatbot just remembering the last thing you said.
No, this is a radical departure from short-term recall. Persistent memory refers to a dynamic, multi-layered data architecture. Think massive vector databases that retain, index, and cross-reference goals, nuances, specific facts, and, crucially, emotional state indicators over months or even years.
So that vulnerable, unscripted conversation my friend was having with his AI assistant, that becomes the raw material.
It becomes the continuous input stream. It is the longitudinal, unguarded dialogue. The AI remembers you mentioned a deep-seated fear of failure 6 months ago, or that your view on parenting shifted last quarter, or how you reacted to specific news a year ago. It builds this cumulative, evolving understanding of your identity, not just a snapshot.
And this huge repository of rich, intimate data, it gets synthesized into something called the high-dimensional compatibility vector.
Right.
That sounds pretty dense. Can we break down what that actually means for someone listening? How does a stream of conversation become a vector?
Okay, think of it this way. A static profile uses maybe 20 or 50 dimensions, height, hobbies, job, A high-dimensional vector uses thousands, maybe tens of thousands of variables. Every conversation, every emotion, every preference revealed is tokenized, it's turned into numerical data points, and then mapped into this multi-dimensional space.
So instead of a list of bullet points, my personality is represented as a complex constellation of thousands of coordinates in a giant virtual space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It functions like a dynamic, incredibly detailed fingerprint of your authentic self. The closer two vectors, two personalities, are in this high-dimensional space, the higher their genuine compatibility score is.
And this is the key difference. It's built from revealed preferences and actual behavior, not what you write in a bio.
The profile is a fiction. The vector is reality.
So if I claim in my profile that I'm low drama, but my conversations with the AI show I'm constantly venting about minor daily stressors, the vector just ignores the profile.
The vector only cares about the behavioral evidence. The AI analyzes how you use humor, how you react to stress, the specific vocabulary you use when talking about the future. It captures the texture and evolution of your life, which a static questionnaire could never, ever touch.
Let's use a concrete example to make this really tangible. Let's take anxiety, a really common, complex trait. The old system, if you even mentioned it, could only match you on the label. This person also has anxiety.
Right. The vector goes far deeper. If the AI detects a behavioral pattern of chronic, low-grade anxiety, it doesn't just look for someone who tolerates it. It analyzes how you manage that anxiety in your conversations.
Like, do you respond well to structured planning? Do you need reassurance?
Do you use dark humor to deflect? And then the AI dramatically increases your compatibility with a potential partner whose vector shows they possess these natural, stable, countervailing behaviors.
Meaning they aren't just saying they're patient. Their vector actually shows that they consistently use language that is supportive or reassuring or structured in their own complex conversations.
It's matching an internal need with an internal, authentic response, not matching static interest. And this is critical for something nuanced like sarcasm.
Right. If I write, "I love sarcasm" in my profile, I might get matched with someone who just tolerates mild irony.
But the vector analysis of sarcasm would be infinitely more specific. It identifies the flavor of your sarcasm.
Yeah.
Is it witty wordplay? Is it sharp political dark humor? Is it playful teasing?
And it makes sure you're matched with someone whose vector shows they not only get that specific style, but they appreciate it and can engage with it.
Exactly. If a potential partner's vectors suggest they consistently misinterpret dark humor as actual hostility, their compatibility score would plummet, regardless of what they wrote in their profile.
And the critical technical advantage here is that this vector is always changing. It's dynamic. My Hinge profile is static until I go in and edit it.
But this vector is adapting in near real time based on your ongoing unguarded conversations. If your career goals shift, if you process a past trauma, if your communication style matures, the vector reflects who you are now. The match is based on your current reality, not a version of you from 6 months ago.
It sounds almost omniscient. It makes me wonder, does this technology have a precedent outside of dating? Because this sounds so predictive.
Oh, absolutely. The precedent is firmly established in the most successful large-scale data platforms we use every day. Think about sophisticated recommendation engines, the algorithms driving your news feed, your music discovery, your streaming services.
They always seem to know what I want before I even ask for it.
And they achieve that predictive power because they rely almost entirely on what's called the memory graph, not the social graph.
Okay, so the social graph is just superficial stuff. Who I follow, who my friends are.
Right. The memory graph is the AI's internal, highly detailed map of your identity, built from every single interaction. Your click history, how long you pause on a video, your search queries, the time of day you engage, your emotional responses to content. It's everything.
So my identity is defined by my implicit patterns, not my explicit connections.
The underlying computational task is identical, whether the AI is curating news or curating people. It's just sophisticated longitudinal pattern recognition and predictive modeling. If an AI can understand your memory graph well enough to know which highly specific article will resonate with your current mood or predict your next purchase.
It has the core capability to predict which person will resonate with you on a deep emotional level.
The memory graph maps your identity, and that identity is the rocket fuel that makes the old model obsolete.
Okay, so we've established the tech is viable and the policy change unlocks it. But something this powerful, handling data, this intimate, it has to come with enormous ethical and societal fallout. If this AI succeeds in quantifying love, what's the price we pay? Which leads us right to this idea of algorithmic colonization.
That concept, the algorithmic colonization of love,
Yeah.
it's a deep philosophical critique of what happens when powerful, efficiency-driven tech encroaches on the most intimate part of human life, the life world of genuine, unquantifiable human interaction.
So the argument is that love, which should be messy and serendipitous and driven by subtle human dynamics, just gets reduced to a technical, market-oriented system that's governed by math.
Precisely. And the immediate, most practical challenge is privacy, where you're talking about concentrating an unprecedented longitudinal depth of highly sensitive personal data, every fear, every hope, every insecurity you share over years, into one centralized system.
Which creates a massive security risk, a single catastrophic point of failure.
And the current industry's track record on protecting even the shallow data they have is, well, it's concerning.
It's abysmal.
It is. Studies have looked at popular dating apps and found that over half failed to meet minimum security standards. They're highly susceptible to data breaches. And critically, 80% of these apps have policies that let them share or sell your personal information with third-party advertisers.
And generative AI is just making them even more data hungry.
Exponentially more. The liability is growing geometrically.
And when this kind of sensitive data leaks, the consequences are life-altering. We've seen it happen.
We have to consider the real-world harm. Past incidents show the danger here. We've seen data breaches that involve sharing highly sensitive health information like HIV status without user consent. We've also seen location tracking data, bought from apps, reportedly used to out individuals in sensitive professions,
leading to total personal and career ruin.
When a system holds the longitudinal history of your innermost life and fails to secure it, the damage is existential.
So if the privacy risk is the immediate practical problem, the loss of meaning is the deeper philosophical cost. This colonization fundamentally changes how we see ourselves and our partners.
The philosophical critique argues that dating algorithms reduce the experience of finding a partner to a purely mathematical calculation. This leads to what the sociologist Zygmunt Bauman called liquid love relationships that are fragile, temporary, and easily dissolved.
Where partners are treated not as human beings, but as as consumption objects in a competitive marketplace.
It commodifies intimacy. Your partner is no longer a co-creator of shared life, but an item you selected from a catalog based on optimized specs.
And this leads directly to what some call the identity crisis.
Yes, the algorithm actively shapes how you define yourself. The gamification of the old model forces users to adapt to the algorithmic imaginary, the prescribed set of norms and behaviors that the machine rewards with attention.
So instead of being my authentic, messy, anxious, sarcastic self, I learned that the only way to get matches is to perform the polished, curated, adventurous hiker persona.
Exactly. Identity erosion happens when your self-expression is replaced by this prescribed normalization process, driven by a technical system. But the threat is even deeper with these new, powerful AI systems. Because the algorithms are so sophisticated, they can covertly steer your decision-making towards the platform's revenue goals.
Exploiting your vulnerabilities instead of actually helping you.
Right. The system has a financial interest in maintaining a certain level of tension and vulnerability. If the algorithm discovers you have a specific psychological profile, maybe you're prone to anxiety and respond well to instant gratification, the app could, in theory, subtly adjust its matching parameters or feature placements to maximize your spending, even if it delays your long-term success.
It's a mechanism of manipulation where the system is rewarded for its own commercial success, not yours. This whole philosophical framework, the price of efficiency, it sets the stage perfectly for the business conclusion. Because if this new deep AI approach actually prioritizes genuine, lasting compatibility, it's a death knell for the current multi-billion-dollar dating industry, which is built on non-success.
That is the inescapable paradox.
Yeah.
We're looking at the end of the engagement trap business model.
I keep thinking, why can't the giants, the match groups of the world who own 80% of the market, just pivot? They have the money, the brand recognition, the users.
They're facing a data moat they just can't cross quickly. The legacy apps are, as we said, running on regular gasoline, shallow two-dimensional data from profiles and swipes. The new general AI platforms, which have spent years gathering thousands of hours of vulnerable longitudinal conversation data, they're running on rocket fuel.
They have the wrong fuel, and they're miles behind in the race.
To pivot, they'd have to fundamentally abandon the brand-safe, G-rated chat environments that protect their ad revenue and their current regulatory compliance. They need to start collecting deep, intimate, persistent memory data, which would take years to acquire at scale and would completely disrupt their corporate structure and their advertiser relationships.
They're financially and structurally locked out of the future of deep matching.
And their entire profit model is tied to you failing to find a partner.
The profit paradox, that's the central point of failure. Current dating apps monetize non-commitment. They sell premium features, super likes, boosts, seeing who likes you, which only matter if you are actively swiping and single.
Their entire system is designed around maximizing sustained engagement.
This was highlighted so powerfully in that 2024 lawsuit against Match Group.
It was. That lawsuit articulated the problem perfectly. It accused Match Group of transforming users into gamblers locked in a search for psychological rewards that Match makes elusive on purpose.
They're accused of using gamified design to exploit the psychological vulnerabilities, the anxiety, and the hope of their users to ensure maximum time and money is spent on the platform.
The moment a new system prioritizes genuine, lasting compatibility, a system optimized for getting you off the app permanently, it fundamentally undermines the entire multi-billion-dollar structure built on non-success.
It's an antithesis business model.
The new AI model views you deleting the app because you found a partner as a success metric. The legacy model views that as a financial loss. That deep-seated misalignment ensures the established players just. They can't compete without destroying their own business.
Now, if the dating giants are obsolete, what about the emerging market of AI companion apps? The romantic chatbots that already fill that intimacy gap. They have persistent memory.
They face instant obsolescence as well, but for a different reason. Companion apps like Replica AI, they got traction because they offered a simulated connection, emotional support, and a non-judgmental space to practice.
For people suffering from loneliness or social anxiety?
Exactly. They filled a need for intimacy that the sterile dating apps couldn't meet. They were selling the emotional map, the practice round.
The simulated map.
Right. But these new general AI platforms, with their policy on lock and high-dimensional vectors, they offer the potential for the real thing. scaled up, and often with superior security and integration. Why would you keep paying for simulated intimacy, often with a questionable security record?
When a superior system exists that's engineered for authentic, real-world connection.
The sheer efficiency and the promise of a real connection just overpowers the need for a simulated practice. The value proposition of the standalone companion app, it just evaporates.
This technology, it promises to solve the core contradictions of modern romance. The crushing pressure of choice, the exhaustion of constant performance, the tension between freedom and stability. It uses our messiest, most anxious, most vulnerable selves as the authentic data points for compatibility. We started with that gap, the curated mask versus the revealed reality. This tech is finally moving online identity away from being a static, curated fiction to a dynamic, continuously evolving, high-dimensional representation derived from actual, unguarded behavior over time.
It's leveraging the messiness, the dark humor, the anxieties, the complex processing of trauma, the parts of us we normally hide, as a foundation for predicting deep, sustainable connection. That technical and policy leap fundamentally changes how we will model and match online.
So it promises superior compatibility, a dramatic reduction in the labor of dating, maybe even a decrease in heartbreak. But as the philosophers warn, this radical efficiency introduces a new, profound tension. By delegating the search for meaning and partnership, our deepest, most intimate decision to an algorithm, we risk submitting to a system that relieves us of the pain of freedom.
The algorithm promises the perfect match, the perfect outcome, the end of uncertainty and choice fatigue. But in doing so, it raises this ultimate question of self-determination. What does it mean to be human if the most vital, chaotic, and meaningful choice we make, who we love, is made for us by a machine? It's the ultimate trade-off, isn't it, between the relief of certainty and the loss of hard-won freedom.